Welcome, YouTubers. We're glad that you have joined us today. We have a fun episode today talking about the stages of parenting. We're in episode 106, so thanks for joining us. Babe, what has your week been like this week?
Well, we're still here, so that's good.
Yeah, we went through a hurricane, our first hurricane since we moved to Florida, and it was not too bad for us. Many of our other Floridian neighbors got hit very badly, and so we're praying for them. But we are thankful for God's protection over our property and our lives. So, so that's what's been going on in our life. We had no power for a while. We got last week's episode in just as the hurricane was coming to us, and then we had no power, no internet for a while.
Couldn't have church Sunday at our facility. So we went and visited another local church in town. Had a great time.
Yeah, it was a wonderful Sunday.
And now it's Monday, and we're getting ready to record Wednesday's episode. Wednesday is my birthday, so we won't be around to record Wednesday. But gonna have some birthday festivities coming up.
That's right.
So
all right, let's get this episode going, because as soon as we are done with this, the girls have a surprise for you for your birthday, since we'll be gone during it. So we got to get this episode done so that we can start the birthday fun.
Because as you know from listening to the podcast, birthdays are a big deal around here.
Big deal.
And if you don't know that yet, go back and listen to the birthday episode.
That was like episode 11 or something.
Yeah, it was way back at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny.
Gather round, everybody. Are you ready?
Now I am. I was still talking.
It's time for a family meeting.
Whoa.
Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I am the birthday boy, Thomas, the magnificent, the wonderful, the super. This is Lysandra. The magnificent, the special, the better than me.
Hello and welcome to our family.
Thanks.
Welcome to episode 106 of the Family Meeting Podcast. We're glad you have joined us today. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the different stages of parenting.
And we're just glad to be high and dry.
That's right.
And have power. We lost power because of the hurricane last week for about a day and a half. Not too bad. The weather was cool afterwards, so it
was beautiful weather.
It was okay. Way better than the derecho in 2020 we went through in Iowa, where we lost power for 13 days.
That was a long time.
So, but it's interesting though how dependent we are on power, and the moment the power comes back on, there's just like this joy that comes across you. We're continuing to pray for those, obviously, who have been affected way worse than we have by Hurricane Ian. Many without power, many without homes, and all those sorts of things. So whatever you can do to be a help, we encourage you to do that.
So this week is an exciting week because today is Monday. We're recording our episode on Monday. It will be released to you on Wednesday. The most fantastic and exciting day of the year. Wednesday is Thomas's birthday. Whoa, the crowd goes wild.
It is my birthday month, so we're celebrating all month long. So far, nothing's happened special in my birthday month, but here's hoping.
Today, we have a surprise for you as soon as we are done with this episode.
Okay.
So he's going to be rushing through this episode to get his birthday surprise. The girls have been planning and scheming because Thomas and I are going to be out of town for his birthday. The one thing that he wanted was to go to the beach, just the two of us, and spend the night.
Just sit on the beach for a couple days.
Yeah. So we're going to do that till we leave tomorrow. But today, the girls have some surprises cooked
I can't
up
wait.
for you.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be epic. But we are talking about the different stages of parenting today. And, you know, we really cannot parent the same way over all the years that we have children. And
no.
The dynamic changes.
It does change. And the dynamic changes, and also we as parents, we grow and we change.
It's crazy how much we change. Parenting changes over the years. Your children grow and change. You will never stop being their mom or dad, but the relationship changes and the way you parent should too. Next week, we are going to zero in on parenting adult children and talk about that stage. That's kind of going to be a part 2 of this episode. So this week, though, we want to define the different parenting stages.
Well, and one of the things you just mentioned a second ago was that that parenting kind of changes over time as they grow. If you're parenting your child at 16 the same way you did when they were at 2, either you were doing it way wrong at 2 or you're doing it way wrong at 16.
Yeah.
Should not be the same exact things going on there.
Absolutely. Now, the reason that we're having this as an episode is because I sat in on a session at a conference where our good friends Mike and Cheryl Grover presented this idea of parenting stages, and I was frantically taking notes and enjoying the conversation that they had. But they talked about training, guiding, establishing, apprenticeship, coaching, and lastly, friendship. And so we're going to talk about this with a little Osterkamp twist to it. Mike and Cheryl, are a couple of stages ahead of Thomas and I. Mike and Cheryl are in that beautiful friendship stage with adult children. So they're ahead of us. They've been through it.
What's nice though is we have somebody to go to.
Yes.
That we can say, hey, what did you do here? Because
yes,
we don't have a clue.
And all parents should have people in their lives, godly people who you can go to who are maybe a stage or two ahead of you and that you can go to and ask for some advice.
Yeah, look and see how their kids turned out first. And decide, okay, yeah, that person, no, I definitely don't want to ask their advice.
I disagree with that statement. I know that you're kidding. You're being a little bit facetious, but I think that what's more important, not looking at how their children turned out, but how their relationship with their children is. Is it a good relationship? Because children often make choices that we disagree with. But the question that's most important to me, I think, would be, what's the relationship like? What do you think?
I agree a little bit. I think we can agree that we know parents who have great relationship with their kids where we would never take their parenting advice.
Okay.
Am I wrong about that?
I'm trying to think. Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, no, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying possibly that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway. Speaking of Mike and Cheryl, we're going to be at their church fellowship coming up in less than 2 weeks now.
Wow.
For their couples weekend it's called Sweet Talk this year. And we'd love to see our listeners there.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
So we have 3 sessions we're going to be sharing, 1 on Friday night, 2 on Saturday. And it's going to be a great experience. I think they've got dinner planned Friday night. There's going to be a time of worship. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be a great experience and a great time to spend working on your relationship with your spouse. So if you want to be a part of that, you can go to our social media, the family meeting, or you can email us at info@familymeeting.org and we can pass along that to you. Mm-hmm. I would tell you to look up Fellowship Baptist Church in Thanatos, Florida, but chances of you being able to spell that is slim to none.
I can't even say it, let alone spell.
No, you cannot say it. We won't insult all of our friends in Thanatos by having you say it again.
Yeah.
So, family meeting, just holler at us and we'll make sure you have the information that you need to be a part of that special event. Now, when we first had kids, I don't know how you felt.
Okay.
But it felt to me like that stage would just last forever.
Mm-hmm. Like the baby stage, the toddler stage, like the beginning.
Yeah. So one of the things I do every day on social media is I check my memories. So I'm always looking back at all the pictures and the videos and everything else and seeing pictures of the kids back then, which we had 4. So we had a lot going on when they were tiny. And I have mixed feelings, a lot of joy, and then I'm like, man, I remember how tiring that was. Mm-hmm. But it felt like it would last forever, where we'd have completely dependent babies and toddlers constantly. Mm-hmm. And, of course, when your wife is spitting them out, one right after another, like a Pez dispenser.
Wow, that was not nice.
Then you're in that season for a long time.
Oh, wow.
Like, straight.
You're delicate.
Just like a flower, baby. Mm-hmm. I am a flower.
You are my flower.
I am that flower that smells like death. I forget the name of it. Do you remember that?
Not at all.
Yeah. So, Google it.
Okay.
I know now that I didn't understand how quickly the way we parented would change. Mm-hmm. And I definitely didn't understand how quickly the girls would grow up. despite the fact that every older parent we came into contact with warned us, hey, enjoy it, savor it, because it's going to change so fast.
Yeah, everybody said it.
And it really did. And now I am that older parent who's telling these young parents, soak it up. Soak up the baby years, soak up the toddler years, because you're going to turn around and it's going to be gone. So I've moved on to the seasoned parent
You're so
category.
wise. It's fun, and it's kind of sadly nostalgic to think back to that moment when we became parents. You know, like, I love it, and yet I'm sad because it's gone, but I have joy thinking about it.
I was just thinking about this the other day, and I don't remember why. Oh, I do remember why. The episode of Friends where Rachel's going to have her baby. But I was thinking how terrified we were to have the baby.
Oh, yeah.
Have Catherine. Especially after watching, like, going to the class and watching the birthing video. It was
my
like, oh my
goodness.
Lord, can we turn back now? It's like 7 months into it.
Yeah.
There's no turning back now.
No turning back. That's right. And if you have children, you know exactly what we mean about that nostalgia and like the sad but yet sweet memories. You know, your world is rocked when you first have kids. Now you have this little human to take care of and keep alive. And as a new mom, I was very concerned that I would not be able to keep Catherine alive. I mean, I truly was worried about her dying like all the time. And I know I sound morbid. I'm a positive person too, but I really thought I was going to kill this baby.
The thing that really hit me is when we were walking out of the hospital with Catherine, and it was like, are they really just letting me leave with this child?
Yeah, like they don't know if we know anything or like what kind of people we are. It's just like...
It just felt like I should be supervised. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well, I was supervising you.
as best as you could, yeah.
I was your supervisor. It was exhausting. But I was worried about like how much was she nursing? Was she eating enough? Is she going to make it through the night? And I do remember like putting my hand on her little baby chest to make sure she was still breathing in the middle of the night. But I'll never forget the night that I finally gave it all to God. I was laying there and I thought, what if she's dead right now in her crib? I know this sounds so morbid, but I did. I thought, like, she could be dead right now because I was letting her sleep in the other room.
Your mind goes to the darkest
first time.
places
I know.
so quickly.
Yeah. And I'm a positive thinker.
Yeah.
I'm not even like a negative person.
You go right to worst case scenario a lot, though.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'm not a positive person.
Positively negative.
I guess. But anyway, I was laying there and I thought, okay, Lysandra, you have two options. You can go and check on her to see if she's alive, or you can give it to God and find out tomorrow morning if she's alive. And I chose to stay in bed and give it to God. The next morning, of course, she was fine. And that was the night that everything changed. And I finally felt relaxed and I could just trust God.
And I think that's just a normal part of having a newborn, especially your first one, is constantly checking on them, constantly worrying about them. Mm-hmm. Because in a lot of ways, they are very frail and dependent. But I think, especially as first-time parents, we think they're a lot more frail than they are, and a lot more fragile than they are. But I remember when Catherine came along, and I call Catherine firstborn. So we go to the volleyball games, and she gets up to serve, and I'm shouting out firstborn.
She said that there was one away game that we couldn't make, and one of the other dads hollered as she went up to play firstborn, and she was like laughing.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Yeah, the other parents think that's pretty comical.
We have an awesome group of parents on our team. They're pretty cool.
But when she came along, everything changed. And we have that first stage of parenting that we want to mention, and that is nurturing. You know, when that baby is put into your hands for the first moment, the nurturing begins. Now, for a mom, that nurturing began a long time ago, 9 months before that.
Yeah.
Where you've spent time loving and caring and thinking about every moment. But it's a natural God-given response to this new life that's put into your care. The parent's main goal during this stage is to bond with their baby. And we as parents have transitioned into nurturing and caring for a baby who needs feeding every 2 hours and diapering just as often, or maybe even more. We have to manage our lives totally different now. mean, you talk about a change of schedule, a change of priorities, and all those sorts of things. And we try not to have our lives being overtaken by this new baby. But now we have to work to balance time for the baby and how much time to devote to other aspects of life. And parenting responsibilities are the most demanding during infancy because those little tiny babies are completely dependent upon us for their care.
I loved the nursing, nurturing stage. I enjoyed the midnight feedings. I loved falling asleep with my babies while nursing. I miss that stage. It almost makes me want to have another baby.
Almost.
Seriously, every time I hold an infant, I'm like, Thomas, please, I want another baby.
Just happened the other day.
Yeah, it did. I love babies. I love it. But when you're in this stage, there are different challenges and blessings. Challenges include sleep deprivation.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And some of the best advice that I got at that time was when your baby sleeps, sleep. And I really tried to do that as much as possible. Like, obviously I had other responsibilities, but I tried to do that. If they took a nap, I took a nap. But sleep deprivation is a challenge because it goes into every other aspect of your life. It makes you like irritable and you have relationship issues because you're sleep deprived and so on and so forth. But another challenge is constantly being on duty. Like, you really don't have an opportunity where you're not like on call or have to be right there with that baby. You're not ever leaving your baby at home alone. Okay.
Well, and you're constantly in high alert.
Yes.
Every sound, every whatever.
Yes. It's more difficult to find sitters often when you have a little infant. It's really hard to leave your baby. Like, I had a very difficult time leaving our babies, like for a date night or whatever, every single time I had one. It was very difficult. The stress of feeling the baby is fragile and you know, is going to be hurt by anything. So like, all of these are challenges of this first stage of parenting, but there are unique blessings too. You know, that sweet little baby doesn't talk back. Not really.
No.
They can cry and you're like, hey, why are you crying?
Well, and my favorite part was all the cuddling.
Oh man, the cuddling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because once they start to like toddle around, they get that taste of freedom. They don't necessarily want to cuddle all the time.
Yeah,
anymore.
sometimes they fight you so that they don't have to cuddle until they get really sleepy or whatever, then you can enjoy the cuddle. But your baby will cuddle and snuggle you as much as you desire. And that baby makes you feel so loved. There's no rejection from an infant. Like, an infant will just accept your love and make you feel loved. And there's a sense of fulfillment in providing everything your baby needs and being that provider and protector and nourisher of that baby. They bring such joy to your life. And there are lots of other positives, but this is kind of like a quick overview of that first stage of nurturing.
It's such a tiring stage, but it's so rewarding. Mm-hmm. And every single one of these stages is unique and special and has its things that are to be enjoyed, but also have their own difficulties. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the next stage of parenting is one of the most labor intensive. At least it was for me. You know, the nurturing stage might have been for you. I don't know. But the second stage is the training stage. Mm-hmm. And a lot of work happens during this stage. Mm-hmm. And this training stage begins when your child begins to crawl and walk until around 4 or 5, somewhere around kindergarten. They're finding their freedom, as we mentioned, for the first time. They're exploring their world around them. They're testing the boundaries and the different issues. And, you know, this is where they can experience some dangers for the first time and all that sort of things. But during this stage, the parenting is all about making and enforcing rules. Mm-hmm. Which, making the rules is not the hard part.
Right.
It's enforcing the rules that is tough. And this is the stage where you must teach your children about authority. And we recently did a podcast episode on training toddlers, episode 99. You can go back and listen to that and get some more detail on that. But you have to be consistent. I won't go through the entire episode. But as far as enforcing the rules, you have to be consistent because these toddlers are going to test you. They're going to see and test the boundaries and see what they can do and what they can get away with. And if you really mean it when you say this rule means this. And that is the most important thing about the training stage, is just stay consistent. Mm-hmm. And there's times where you're tired, where you're like, man, I don't really want to enforce this bedtime rule because I'm tired. Well, you have to keep on enforcing it. Mm-hmm. Got to be consistent.
This stage was exhausting in general, but my personal least favorite stage of childhood takes place at this time, and that's potty training.
Oh yeah.
Man, I hated potty training. I just despised it. It was so much work. I often tell people that potty training is not about training the toddler. It's about training the parent to accept the fact that there's going to be wets, there's going to be accidents, and you have to accept that and train yourself not to put the diaper back on him. But anyway, I'm not a potty training expert by any means. I did potty train 4 daughters because Thomas had the job
and one husband.
Yeah, right. Thomas, his job before we got married or before we had children, it was agreed upon that his job was to potty train all the boys in the family. So how'd that go for you?
It went fantastic.
Yeah.
And I still had a part in potty training the girls, but
you did, but
you were home with them most of the time. So
yeah, and I was the one who always had
even
to
if we had
take them to the bathroom
when we were out and about. Yeah. But at home, you were there most of the time. So
yes. So that's out of all of the parenting we've done so far, our oldest is 16. My least favorite is potty training. In fact, it might be the only thing that I haven't enjoyed. I've really enjoyed almost everything except for potty training. It's so hard. But I did love the training stage in general. I had a blast with my toddlers. It's just that potty training is the worst part. But there are different challenges and blessings to the training stage of parenting as well. Challenges in this stage include chasing. That's such a challenge. Constant chasing. No matter what, you're always trying to run and catch them before they touch the hot stove, run out the door, get the outlet, so on and so forth. It's a lot of chasing.
Oh, and I think about all the times our kids ran off into some danger. We lived on that busy road in Iowa.
Oh, so
and
busy.
Was it Violet?
Yes.
Violet.
4th daughter.
Got out the back door and ran to the front and was going to go across the street.
I was chasing her down the hill that ended, the bottom of this very, very steep hill, ended at a road where people would go 45 miles an hour on it.
And the sidewalk was literally right next to the road.
Yep. And she wasn't even 2. She was under 2 and toddling. And I was running as fast as I possibly could to try to reach her before the road. Got to the end of the road. She was in the street by the time I got to her. And I had all that force running because I was running down the hill and then hit the pavement. And my body just stopped and my knees hit the ground. As I reached out and grabbed her and pulled her back, my knees were cut up to shreds. Oh my gosh. I really thought she was going to die that day. But yeah, chasing. Okay. Constant supervision is a challenge. You cannot leave them for a moment. They will get a permanent marker and marker on everything. Isabella, when she was in this stage, fed the fish all the fish food, and all the fish ate themselves to death.
Yeah.
They ate themselves to death. At this stage, Catherine snuck out of her room while I was in the shower, and Thomas didn't listen when I said I was going to the shower and left the house. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And she ran downstairs. She got a stool, got up on the counter, got the peanut butter balls, took them upstairs to the crib to Isabella, and put the whole container of Buckeyes into the crib. And the 2 of them ate themselves silly. Isabella was 9 months old and had a peanut allergy for the next 2 years because of that constant supervision.
So just a little tip for all of our parents that are in this stage. If your house is quiet, you better be in panic mode because something is happening that you don't want to happen.
Oh, man. Lots of discipline is a challenge. It gets old. One time Thomas came home and I was like, I feel like all I've done is disciplined all day. I haven't played with my children. I haven't sang to them. All I've done is discipline all day long. There's a lot of help required to dress them, to bathe them, to do their hair, plus handling all of the housework because they're too young to be a big help around the house. Now, they might be able to sort the silverware, the clean silverware into the drawer or something little, but they're not very big help. You're doing everything at this stage. It's challenging. But there are so many blessings at the training stage of parenting. There's fun. Oh my gosh, those kids are so fun at that age. Playing with them, they're adorable. They're so cute. They're developing their personality and they're developing intellectually, and it's fun and they're funny. The things that they do are so funny. My advice to you at this stage is video, video, video. I regret not videoing more.
Well, and this was one of my favorite stages because they moved out of just looking for mommy all the time, and now they're looking for daddy because they want to play and have fun.
Yes.
And I remember just wrestling the girls and throwing them across the room onto their beds and just having so much fun. I look back at some of those pictures of us wrestling around, and I just remember how much fun we had.
Yep. Absolutely. And hopefully at this point you're getting more sleep and you're getting regular sleep. Hopefully they're a little more independent and can do some stuff for themselves. They might be able to, go to the bathroom on their own. They might be able to wash their own hands, little things like this. So things are getting maybe a little easier for you at this stage of parenting, but they're keeping on growing.
Well, and we talked about consistency. So if you're consistent with the rules and the boundaries, especially like bedtime, you're going to be getting more sleep. Mm-hmm. And you're going to find that you're more rested and better prepared to take them on during the day. So that consistency at bedtime especially is key. Third stage of parenting is the guidance stage. And this begins sometime around elementary school age. Might be just a little different depending on your child's development and all those sorts of things. But during this stage, your children are beginning to think for themselves and consider how things work. And they start to think about the question, why? And this was probably one of my least favorite stages, is the dreaded why stage. Mm-hmm. And they're constantly asking, why?
Yeah, then you answer them.
And then they say, why?
And then you answer them.
And why? Mm-hmm. I'm like, finally, I understand why parents were saying, because I said so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you just get to the point where you're like, I'm done.
It's not a great way to parent, by the way. But one of the great things about this stage is you get to begin to guide your children into how to think logically and explain the answer to the question why. As annoying as those questions are, it's so valuable. Mm-hmm. Because for one thing, you want your children to learn to come to you with questions.
Yes.
And for help. You want to be the main force in guiding them along. So when we say things like, because I said so, what we're teaching them is we're teaching them to go somewhere else to find the answers. So when they come to us with the question why, as irritating as it can be at times, it's a valuable thing and a tool for us to be able to use to help to teach them and guide them in their learning process. It's a great opportunity to help your children understand what you believe and why. It's an opportunity to help them learn your core values and the why behind them. And maybe you don't have any idea why you believe that. Hey, if nothing else, it's a great motivator to get you to explore why do you go to the church you go to? Mm-hmm. Why do you believe this certain thing? Why do you have this tradition? Why do you hold to this standard? And have an explanation for it. And I really think this isn't really what this episode's about. But I think one of the major reasons why young people move away from the church is because we don't do a good job of explaining the whys behind things.
Right.
And part of that is we're just doing what somebody else told us, and we're just repeating what somebody else told us versus understanding the actual why behind it.
Right.
So let's break that cycle.
Yes.
And let's talk to our children about the why behind everything that we do. You ought to have a reason for everything that you do. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be able to explain that to them and then teach them critically to think critically, how did we get to that point? So they can start to establish their own whys behind what they're going to do. And so we have to reevaluate how involved to be with our children. when to step in, when to encourage children to make choices independently. And once again, the whole point of all of these is to get our children to a point where they can be on their own and they can make their own choices and they can stand up for themselves and they can make an impact in this world. And so every step along the way, every single one of these stages, we have to transition how we interact with our kids, how we parent them. We're trying to equip them in each one of these stages for the next stage.
Mm-hmm. And this guidance stage is a great stage, but the biggest challenge at this parenting stage is not to lose it on your elementary age child when they continually ask why over and over again. So I think that, like, if I'm talking about challenges in this stage, I think that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, listen, another challenge in this stage is the fact that, you know what, they can be kind of annoying. Like, this elementary stage can be kind of annoying. There's just constant questions and they're coming to you with everything, and that can be challenging, okay?
There's times where you have to be like, hey, listen, mommy or daddy needs 10 minutes. Like,
Yep.
I just need 10 minutes. Go play, go do something else. Give me 10 minutes.
This makes me think of that coffee mug, that has the lines on it. And the first line is like, don't talk to me. The second line is like, not yet. The third line, as you get to the bottom of the cup, is like, almost. And then when it's empty, it's like, okay, you can talk to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh. And I've had to do that with my kids and say, like, okay, you're going to have to wait a little bit. I remember a million times, I don't know, that's maybe an exaggeration, being in the bathroom. Like, I just want some peace and quiet in the bathroom.
Can I not just use the restroom in peace?
Yeah. And they're knocking multiple. I mean, we've got 4 kids knocking on the door, mommy, blah, blah, and fighting.
And you remember our bathroom in Iowa had the gap.
Huge gap under the floor.
So they'd like lay on their head on the floor and try to peek underneath.
Yes. And you're like, ugh. Or they'd stick their fingers underneath the door and be like, mommy.
Yeah.
I remember when
felt like a horror movie where some zombie or something's trying to get you and they're like reaching their hand under the door.
They slid a note under the door. I remember that. And it was like, mommy, I need to talk to you about this, when they were old enough, to do that, to write and everything. So there are challenges to this. There also could be times when during this stage, you're going to start seeing some behaviors. Maybe you're going to start seeing some rebellion, some talking back, fighting with siblings, or there could even be learning issues at this stage as they're developing in elementary school. Navigating elementary learning disabilities and stuff at that age, it's a difficult challenge for the child, but also for us parents.
Yeah.
I mean, the pride that hits, when the pride that gets kind of slashed to pieces, I should say, when you find out that maybe your child has a learning disability or something like that, or a developmental issue. And these are all things that can be challenges at this time. But parenting blessings at this stage include watching your child develop and make new achievements.
Yeah.
Being that person in their life who is their teacher, answering their questions and guiding them to think for themselves. That's an important role we play. There's a sense of accomplishment and pride when your child reasons something out well and they use the tools that you've taught them, and then they implement them and you see them make a good choice. It's a blessing when they make a good decision. And that moment when you give them a little independence and they do the right thing with it, that's an awesome feeling. And they also have great abilities to be helpful here around the house. So this is the stage in our home where we introduce laundry, dishes, cooking, and baking as tasks that they could complete on their own. So even in toddler stage, they were dumping the flour into the bowl or whatever. But this is the age where you start to say, okay, you're going to make a box of macaroni and cheese by yourself. Read the instructions, and letting them kind of do that kind of thing on their own.
Sink or fail.
So there are sink and fail would be the same.
Yeah. Usually the first time it is.
You will be sinking and failing.
Yeah.
And we'll have macaroni and cheese later.
Where you misread the That's happened for every one of our kids.
Absolutely.
Where they misread it and then it turns out the muffins are
flat.
Horrible, the pancakes are horrible, the macaroni's horrible.
Yeah.
But one thing to remember, at each one of these stages, your children are going to be testing the boundaries. So what kind of happens is at the beginning of a stage, the children test the boundaries. And if you as a parent are good at establishing the rules and enforcing the rules, then you kind of fall into the rhythm and the pattern of that stage.
Yeah, it's nice.
And then it gets to a point where you're getting ready for the next stage. And it's just a natural thing. Natural thing to happen as they learn and grow and mature is they're going to start to test the boundaries. And, you're moving into that next stage. And so just kind of expect that at every one of these stages, your children are most likely going to be testing the boundaries that go along with each one of these stages. Mm-hmm. Now, as you move into the middle school age, from 11 to 15 or so, then we move into the apprenticeship stage of parenting. And here's where we are allowing our children even more freedom to succeed or fail. We talked about the recipes a little bit. And, that's just one example of different areas of life. But this is the time where we might provide them opportunities to sink or swim in activities, chores, school, and sports. We're no longer holding their hand for everything they do. And so one of the things to think about during this stage, we tell our kids to do certain things. We've established certain rules. And rather than remind them every 5 minutes or repeat the rule or the instruction every 5 minutes, we're establishing it, we're throwing it out there, and we're giving them an opportunity to remember, to follow through, to do what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then if they do, hey, we praise that, we reward that. Yes. If they don't, then of course there's repercussions that go along with it. But they have to, we have as parents, as there are little apprentices, we have to teach them to remember things, to become responsible, to follow through on what they say they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And so we're letting them go try new things and see how they do. Now, we're right there nearby to help or step in when it's necessary, but it's more hands-off parenting style than the training or the guidance stages. All that work that you put into those earlier stages will now begin to bear fruit in this apprentice stage.
Mm-hmm. I do enjoy this stage of parenting. It's great for many reasons. We still have one in this stage, and I don't know.
3 in this stage.
Yeah, in a way. I guess it depends on each child, because I think the age ranges are a little bit fluid, and they can change based on the family or based on the child. But it's great for many reasons. The blessings. Let's talk about the blessings. They are amazing workers at this stage. They can be.
They can be, yeah.
They can be.
If you put in your work in the other stages, yeah, they definitely can be.
And I think about even after this hurricane, finally it was safe to go outside. So we go outside. We have all these brush branches, stuff down in our yard, and they go out there to help clean up. You've got the rake.
Yeah, we're all out there just working
together.
And the work is done in no time.
The work is done in no time. It's fabulous. I love it. So this stage can be really helpful, and it can make your life easier. It really can. They begin to have a sense of humor at this stage, which is so fun. Now, they do need help understanding what's funny and what's just mean. Every one of our kids at this stage tested the humor thing, because sarcasm can be very funny, but sarcasm can be hurtful.
And they mean. See, I love sarcasm. Mm-hmm. I find sarcasm funny. Mm-hmm. And so for the most part, I understand what I should and shouldn't say and when I should and shouldn't say it. Sometimes I still say it anyway, but I understand it. But when they're in this stage, they don't necessarily understand when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. So they do test that.
Mm-hmm, they sure do.
And I try not to let them know that I think it's funny while letting them know that's not
that was just
appropriate time, or
too far.
That's mean. That's too far.
Mm-hmm. This is the stage that you can leave them home alone and feel a little more freedom as a parent. That first moment.
Oh yeah, big time. And now we leave them home alone in we're going away for my birthday for a couple of days, and I don't even think about the fact or worry that they're home alone.
Yeah, they do a great job. Excuse me. So that first time that we left them home alone, I remember kind of having my world spin around, because I thought when we first had our baby that it would be 18 years until we could have freedom. or like go on a date.
Well, and the
without a
18-year
babysitter.
clock started over with every one. So by the
Yeah.
time we're done, it's like 25 years.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be so terrible. Like, but man, as soon as you can start leaving them home alone during this apprentice stage, it's really nice, and you begin to enjoy freedom again, a little bit of freedom. They make me laugh a lot at this stage. They begin to blossom into who they are, and you begin to see their personality unfold right in front of you. And one of the things I like to tell my girls during this apprentice stage is, man, I really like who you're becoming. I like to tell them that because I do. Especially when they show those good signs of kindness and thoughtfulness towards others and good behavior and following through on chores and so on. I like to tell them that I really like who you're becoming. There are distinct challenges during this stage of parenting, like dealing with deception, because this is, they're going to have more opportunities for freedom, which means they have more opportunities for deception and doing the wrong thing with that freedom. The possibility of them rejecting the apprenticeship you're offering them is there. This stage is where we fought a lot of character flaws like laziness and unkindness. And this is where a lot of sins like cheating and lying came out, and we had to fight these things and deal with them. And they come out as they have more opportunities for independence. That's just part of it. So a lot of work does go into correcting this behavior, and that is challenging. So like every stage, this stage 2 has its blessings and its challenges.
Well, and I think one of the challenges too is a lot of the discipline is not so straightforward as it was when they were kids, when they were younger.
Good point.
Because when they were younger, it was, hey, these are the rules and this is the repercussion. But some of the things we've dealt with our kids, like we didn't necessarily have a rule for that, and we didn't know we needed one.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden something comes up where you've had this deception, this disobedience, whatever that's taken place, and it's like, okay, what should the repercussions for this be? Like, and we've even told our kids, we don't know what the punishment for this is going to be yet. Mm-hmm. And we've got to talk about it, and we've got to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those challenges. But yeah, with more responsibility comes the possibility for them to come up short and to fail and to do wrong. But that's part of the learning and growing process as well.
Yes.
And then we get to the coaching stage. And this comes in, like we've said, it's a little fluid. It depends upon your child. But from around 16 to 22-ish, this is where we find ourselves with, one of our daughters at least, depending on, Isabel is right there.
She's growing into this stage, I think, already.
She's 15.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think for our 2 daughters, it's happened earlier because they're dual enrolled in a college. And so they are starting into this stage maybe earlier than we did even.
Oh, yeah.
As teenagers, maybe.
Yeah. And, here they are, teenagers, and they're getting into the college years. And suddenly they have the ability to drive to and from school and other activities. They can use their phones and internet regularly. They have to be trusted to do projects for school on the internet. And we all know the kind of filth and garbage that's at their fingertips there. Here we must coach them because we aren't with them 100% of the time.
Right.
We have to help coach somewhat from the sidelines as they make choices for themselves and they begin to get a taste of running their own lives. And one of the things you have to remember at this point, your 16-year-old is really just a few short years away from, I don't have to be here anymore. I can go wherever I want. I can do whatever I want. And so you really have to learn, and you have to force yourself to be a lot more hands-off so that you can oversee and coach them as they make these different decisions.
Yeah, and I think that this coaching analogy is so perfect, especially now that I understand a little bit more some like team sports with a coach since the girls are in volleyball, because this really is one of those things where like they're out there on the court, they're playing, they're living life. And then you have these moments where you have a timeout and they come back to you and you're like, okay, here's what we did wrong. Here's what we can improve. This is what you did right. All right, go. And then they're back out on the court and they're living life again. And you're at the sidelines watching. and you know you're going to have another opportunity soon to have another timeout or another pep rally or whatever it is, another coaching session. And you've got to think about how you choose that to use that time. You have to think about, what do I need to say in these moments where they come back home and, okay, they've been out all day and they did this, this, and this. And now I have this opportunity to have a little relationship time with them, a little coaching time. What am I going to say at that moment? You know, choosing your battles, and all of that comes into play here. But I think this coaching analogy is the perfect way to talk about this stage of parenting.
And so here's some of the things you're gonna need to coach your children on during this stage: buying a car, creating credit, handling relationships with the opposite sex, getting and keeping a job, managing their activities, their schedule, preparing, entering college, if that's the direction you choose to go, or an apprenticeship, or one of those sorts of things, time management. And in the middle of all these practical areas, we're also coaching them on character, behavior, ethics. You know, I think about things as simple as, hey, how do you change a tire? You know, you're stuck on the side of the road and you got a flat tire. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So you're learning to walk them through. You're not necessarily doing this for them anymore. You're guiding them in the process.
Yeah. And I think about, as far as like the character, behavior, the ethics, that side of things, the example that comes into my mind is something that my parents put into me during this coaching stage. Is they said, when you get a job, you never leave a job without two things. First, you have another job lined up. And secondly, you give a 2-week notice. That's character, that's ethics, that's the right way to do things. Something as simple as that, but that's the kind of coaching that we have going on here. Beside the practical things, it's character. How do you handle these things? What do you do when your boss tells you to do something you don't agree with? You know, all of these kinds of things come into play in this coaching stage. And parenting, I think, becomes very difficult in this stage because you now need to deal with many problems you feel inexperienced in handling. You know, it's like these things come up and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like you said, I don't know what we're going to do here, but we'll talk about it and get back to you. Sometimes that happens. And some stuff can come out of left field in this stage. Other challenges are taking your hands off and allowing them to make mistakes and allowing them to get hurt. Boy, that's hard.
Oh, yeah, that's the hardest part.
Holding your tongue when you need to allow them to make a choice and you've already coached them in that matter, but they're going the opposite direction, and just holding your tongue and letting them do it. Because how do we learn? How do any of us learn? By making the mistake.
Well, and when Lysandra talks about holding your tongue and letting them make a choice, we're not talking about something that's going to have lasting, damaging repercussions or harmful, but we're just talking about areas of life where it's safe for them to learn to fail, to make the wrong choice. Obviously, if our kid is going to harm themselves or somebody else, we step in.
Oh, right. Yes.
But
thank you for clarifying.
We want them to learn how to fail and make choices in safe areas, because that will help them in areas of their life that are far more important and have far-reaching repercussions if they choose the wrong thing.
And this stage is where your teen is developing a separate identity outside of you and your family. They're becoming their own person, and that's difficult. And separation is a gradual process and everything, but through this stage, the parent-child relationship is redefined. It's transformed. It's completely new. And the new relationship involves finding balance between distance and closeness, separation and connectedness, and this is challenging.
Very.
It's not easy. Blessings, though, many, many blessings. They're beginning to develop friendships now with your teenagers. And oh, I love that. I love being friends with my girls.
And one of the things that we've started doing is we give our girls a lot more freedom to decide if they want to come along on certain things or not. And so there's times as a family we'll go somewhere and one of our daughters will choose to stay home.
Oh, and I hate it.
And yeah, it's tough because we want our family together doing everything, but this is part of that process is giving them the freedom to make their own decisions.
Yeah, it is tough.
That separation that you're talking about, I think that's one of the hardest things.
Yeah. But going back to blessings, having fun with them. Like having fun with teenagers is awesome. Makes you feel young again. Having some free time as adults to date again or spend random time together. Like we don't even, I was going to say, we don't even think about our kids when we want to spend time together. I mean, in a way that's true. Like if we decide we want to go do something and we don't want kids there, we just go do it. Like we tell them, hey, make your own supper. We're going to go whatever.
I think one of my favorite things about this stage is not having to watch all the little kiddie shows. Like our girls enjoy watching things that I enjoy watching.
Yes, that is really fun. That's true. Another blessing is that they can be extra helpful as drivers, getting groceries and whatever else, helping cart your other kids around. But if you want to know a little bit more about parenting teens, and this is the stage that you're in between that, beginning teen stage and this ending teen stage, episodes 47 through 50, that is a 4-part series that we did on this podcast about parenting teens. And so there might be some helpful advice for you in there if that's your parenting stage.
And then the last stage that begins, and it depends upon your child and what they choose to do, but it begins anywhere from 18 on up. And that is this friendship stage. And this is the time when your child leaves home and becomes an adult. And obviously it's going to vary depending on the plan and the goals of each of your children. If they stay home and go to college nearby, the coaching stage might last a little bit longer because they're still under your roof and authority, and there may be younger children and that whole influence to consider. But if they choose to go off to college or whatever else at 18, then that stage begins a little bit earlier. And parenting at this stage involves stepping back and watching your adult child's life play out before your eyes.
Scary.
It is at this point.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it's going to be like. But you no longer have parental control or authority. And they're adults making their own choices. And this is one of the things to think about. I think at each stage you ought to be thinking and planning for the next stage in parenting. But we have been working since they were infants to get them to this point. Let's go back to the guiding stage there where we talked about the why. Kids asking why and giving them answers. See, one of the things that we've been working at all along the way is to keep that line of communication open between us and our children so that when they get to this stage that we're talking about here, this friendship stage, then we still have the ability to speak into their life. And we're not telling them what to do, but we want to have that friendship open, that two-way communication where they're telling us about what's going on in their life, that they know that they can come to us and we'll give them advice and let them choose what they're going to do. And I think part of that, we're going to get into this a little bit later on, but part of that is sometimes waiting for them to come to us for advice and not just telling them all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
But that parental control or authority is gone at this point. They are adults making their own choices. And so you've got to move away from trying to control everything to, hey, I'm your friend. I love you. I care about you. I'm here for you. And I'll help any way that I can.
That's right. The most important thing to understand about this stage is that the only relationship that you can have with your adult child is the one they allow you to have. Scary, right?
I don't like that.
I don't like that either. They have total power at this point. You can't weasel your way into their life. They can shut you out. The ball is totally in their court as adults, and they must invite you into their life. And this may be something to keep in mind as you parent at the other stages. Not that you let them do whatever they want and they get to grow up and just, have fun and you're going to be their friend all the way into adulthood. No, like you still have to be their parent. You still have responsibilities, and structure is good for kids, and kids want structure. They want discipline, whether they know it or not. But how are you going to interact with your children leading up to this stage?
Yeah.
Think about the consequences that there are from being overbearing. Think about the way that you talk to them. Consider the battles you choose to fight. Now, next week, we're going to look at parenting adult children in more depth, so we're not going to talk about it too much today, but something to consider as you go through the different stages.
And each of these stages bring new challenges and things to learn for parents. There's constantly a need for new strategies and techniques to support our children to grow through their own developmental stages. And these stages also require different amounts of time as parents. For example, a newborn child requires nearly 24 hours of care, whereas a teenager is often largely independent. But it's important for parents to be around at the right times, and this can be highly unpredictable.
Yes.
There's times where I think everything's going great, and then all of a sudden one of our daughters is like in tears.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one of those right times where I need to be there as a father. And it's important to maintain a strong connection to your child and pay attention as the stages evolve.
Knowing the best way to support our children as they develop can sometimes be challenging, but recognizing that we're constantly growing and changing as parents and our children are constantly growing and changing can help us give ourselves permission to not expect perfection. We don't expect perfection from our children, and we don't have to expect perfection from ourselves. Each new challenge we face is a new challenge for both us as parents and for our children, so give grace to both. And just understand that these stages are transitions that happen. And you just do your best. You go to the Lord. You go to the Word of God. You go through prayer. And God will help you as you manage each of these different stages.
And I think it's important for us to have friendships with people who are in similar stages of parenting as you are. But also to have these contacts of parents who are a stage or two in front of you, so that you're preparing yourself for the next stage. You know, my children are toddlers now. What is it that I need for their next stage of growth? What do I need to be learning and concentrating on and helping them get to for the next stage, all the way up into adulthood? But as we have a family meeting tonight, we want you to sit down and just talk about what stage of parenting you're in right now.
Or what stages of parenting. Because I know some parents, they might have an older teenager and an infant.
Yeah, so you're in multiple. You could be across the span of stages.
Yes, you could. But we can't parent each child the same.
No. And so having that conversation of what stage are we in or stages are we in with each of these children, and what are the changes you may need to implement to adapt to the current stage you're in right now? Because you may be still holding on really tightly, to your 11-year-old and parenting them like they're a 4-year-old. Okay, you're what you're doing is you're hindering their ability to learn and grow and make decisions for themselves, and you're limiting what needs to take place in the next parenting stage. So you may have some changes you need to make with how you're parenting a certain child. Make a commitment to parent in a way that's appropriate for the children that you have. So if I've got a mix of older children and younger children, I can't parent my younger child like it's an older child. And I don't want to parent my older child like they're a younger child. I need to give them what they need for the stage that they're in right now.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. Maybe you want to shoot us a text or leave us a voice message. You can do that at 904-257-3062. We'd love to be able to hear from you.
Yes, we would. And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we dig into the stage of parenting many of our listeners are in right now or entering soon. Parenting adult children. This stage is right around the corner for us, which is crazy to think about, but it's true and we want to talk about it.
And we're trying to prepare ourselves for that time.
That's right. And I'm going to reach out to some parents that we know who are in this stage or have maybe been in this stage for a little while and see what advice they have for all of us that we can share with all of you.
Pass along some of the wisdom. And maybe that's the stage that you're in right now. And you say, hey, you know what? I'm in this stage, this would be some super helpful information because, hey, we did this right. Or it may be, you know what, man, we made a few mistakes in this stage. So maybe this can be a help to somebody else. Shoot us that message, and we'd love to pass along your wisdom to everybody else as they get ready for this stage as well. Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was a fun one to talk about, kind of to think through all of those stages of parenting that we've been through.
Yeah.
And then looking forward to our next stage. And we'd love to hear from you. Maybe you have some advice to give on that adult stage that we're going to talk about next week. Please send us that info. We'd love to hear from you.
Or maybe you have a tip on one of the other parenting stages.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear that, be able to pass along that information to all of our other listeners. We don't think we know it all when it comes to parenting.
No.
And so we love to hear other people's thoughts, suggestions, wisdom, and experience so that we can pass that along to everybody else. We hope that you have a fantastic week, and we're so thankful that you joined us on this discussion today. Have a great week.
Bye.